You don't need to own a single property to start making money on Airbnb. Most people just don't know that yet. What's going on, guys? I'm Jovan. I run 19 Airbnb units, and the majority of them I don't even own. In this video, I'm breaking down the exact steps to land your first arbitrage unit so you can stop waiting and start building. So let's look at the facts. Most people wait because they've been conditioned to believe that security is a property deed or a 30-year pension. That is a delusion. I spent 12 years in the federal government working my way from a TSA officer to a supervisor role and eventually to the Pentagon as a federal police officer. If I waited until I felt ready or until I owned every property, I'd still be sitting in a patrol car counting down the minutes until my shift ended. Now, I didn't leave one of the most secure jobs in America because I was lucky. I left because I built a protocol. I built a business that replaced my federal salary in just 15 months. This isn't just about real estate. It's about identifying a structural trap and building a bridge out of it. Before I give you the blueprint for your first unit, you need to understand the perspective behind it. Because I wasn't born into real estate. I didn't have a mentor or a massive bank account. I started exactly where most of you are, inside a system that told me stability was the only goal. If you're sitting at your desk right now, or you're in your car listening to this, and you feel like you're just a cog in a massive, illogical machine, this is for you. My story isn't a brag, it's a proof of concept. Now again, let's look at the facts. Rental arbitrage is a simple concept that most people overcomplicate. You rent a property on a long-term lease, you list it on a short-term platform like Airbnb, and you pocket the spread between the rent you pay and the revenue that the guests generate. In the industry, we call this master leasing. It's not a hack. It's just the same model used by major hotel chains and corporate housing companies. They don't own the skyscrapers that they operate in. They lease the space and manage the experience. Why is this the best way to start? Because as a big picture advisor, I care about velocity of capital. If you want to buy a $500,000 house, you need to invest at least $100,000 for a 20% down payment. After closing costs and repairs, you might cash flow $500 to $800 a month. That is a slow, inefficient way to build freedom. You're tying up $100K of your liquidity in a single asset that is one bad tenant or one market shift away from being a liability. In arbitrage, that same $100,000 doesn't buy you one house. It can launch 10 units. For roughly $10,000 to $12,000, you can secure a lease, furnish the property to a showroom quality standard, and go live. If that unit generates $1,500 in profit per month, you have a 100% return on your capital in less than a year. That is a level of leverage that you simply cannot find in traditional investing. Out of my 19 units, the vast majority are arbitrage. Why? Because I don't want the pride of ownership. I want the efficiency of the cash flow. I want a business that scales as fast as my systems allow, not as fast as a bank's mortgage department allows. For beginners, this is the lowest risk entry point because your downside is capped at the cost of your furniture and of your lease. You aren't on the hook for a 30-year mortgage if the market shifts. You are managing the margin, not the mortgage. Alright, so now you know the logic behind the model. Let me walk you through how to actually start the audit. It begins with where you put your flag. So now, let's talk about the execution. It starts with step 1, which is picking your market. Most people pick a city because they like it or they want an excuse to visit. But honestly, that's a hobbyist move. An institutional operator picks a market based on data density and regulatory stability. You're looking for a shift-proof environment. If you pick a market with high demand but unstable laws, you haven't built a business. You've built a house of cards. You need to audit 4 specific sensors before you commit a single dollar. Year-round demand. Is this a seasonal trap or a 12-month market? You want a location that stays active when the vacation season ends. Major infrastructure. Look for proximity to international airports and major medical centers. These drive high-intent, high-budget travelers who aren't price-sensitive. The event calendar. Does this city host conventions, sports, or major festivals? These allow for peak pricing protocols where you can make a month's worth of profit in a single weekend. And lastly, the regulatory climate. This is the most important. You only operate where the rules are clear and documented. Now, I started in my own backyard, the Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland area, known as the DMV, because it allowed me to personally oversee the initial systems and understand the ground level operations. But I expanded to Houston because the data showed a massive gap in professional grade inventory. I wasn't emotionally attached to Houston. I was attached to the revenue gap that I saw in the numbers. Stop guessing. Use tools like AirDNA to see the actual revenue numbers, not just the asking price on Airbnb. Perform a manual audit on the current listings in your target zip code. If you see a lot of low quality amateur hosts, then that is actually your opportunity to enter with a showroom quality asset and take the market share. If the break-even math after rent, utilities, insurance, and cleaning doesn't leave you with a 20 to 30% margin, you simply walk away. No emotion, just logic. You aren't looking for a pretty city. You're looking for an asset that produces cash flow. Once you know where the math works, the next challenge is the gatekeeper. How do you get a landlord to say yes to a professional operator instead of a traditional tenant? Once you have identified the market, you face the gatekeeper, which is the landlord. Now, most people fail here because they approach the landlord as a tenant asking for a favor. That is a weak position. You are an asset manager offering a solution. You aren't asking for a place to live. You're offering to turn their property into a corporate grade asset. When I pitch, I don't talk about Airbnb. I talk about professional management and guaranteed rent. Here is the logic you present them with. Zero vacancy risk. They get the check on the first of every month, regardless whether the unit is occupied or not. You are their most reliable tenant because your business depends on that lease staying active. Institutional maintenance. Traditional tenants treat a house like a home. They wear it down. We treat it like a showroom. The unit is professionally cleaned about 8 to 10 times a month. If a light bulb flickers, it's fixed immediately. We are pretty much human sensors for the property's condition. High tier protection. We carry commercial liability insurance that covers far more than a standard renter's policy. Now, I remember my third unit. A friend referred me to a homeowner who was having trouble finding long-term tenants. And I sat down with him and I showed him my protocol. I explained my goals were perfectly aligned with his. I needed the house to be perfect so that I can earn a premium. And he didn't just say yes, he was actually relieved. But let's be honest, you are going to get rejected. A lot. In my early days, I'd make 20 calls and get 19 no's. That isn't a failure, it's just a filter. You aren't looking for every landlord. You're looking for the one who understands the math. Most landlords are emotional. They are afraid of the unknown. And your job is to provide the data that removes that fear. If they say no, you audit your pitch, you check your sensors, and you move on to the next lead. At this point, you are a professional closer. You don't need a yes from everyone. You just need one yes to launch your first unit. Now that you have the lease, you have a liability that needs to be converted into an asset as quickly as possible. This is where most people get emotional and they start to overspend, or they get cheap and underperform. As an architect, you are building for conversion. When I started, I didn't have a design degree. I used Instagram inspiration to piece together a look that felt premium without paying the premium price tag. I was looking for high impact, low cost upgrades, things like wood slat walls and specific lighting that makes a unit really pop in a thumbnail picture. You aren't decorating a home, you're basically staging a set. The math of furnishing. Now, for a standard 1 or 2 bedroom unit, you should budget between $4,000 to $8,000 for everything. Furniture, linens, kitchenware, tech. If you spend $20,000, you've pushed your break-even point far too far back. Now, if you spend $2,000, your unit will look like a dorm room and your daily rate will reflect that. You're basically looking for that sweet spot where the quality of the furniture allows you to charge about a 20% premium over the market average. Once the furniture is in, you need to capture the data. Now, most hosts take photos with their iPhones. That is an amateur move. You go out there and you hire a professional real estate photographer to capture your hero photos. Your listing is a digital storefront. If the first 3 photos don't stop the scroll, then the rest of your protocol basically doesn't even matter. The listing audit, the title. Don't be poetic, be searchable. Focus on the why. Is it near the airport? Is it a luxury oasis? The description. Stop talking about yourself. Talk about the guest experience. Use professional, clear language that signals that this is a managed asset, not a hobby. The pricing. Remember what I said in my last video? Even starting with unit number 1, you do not price this yourself. You plug it into your dynamic pricing software. Let the data decide what the market is willing to pay for a Tuesday in November versus a Saturday in July. At this point, guys, you're building a machine. The furniture is the hardware, the listing is the software. When they work together, the revenue starts to flow. But once you go live, you enter the most critical phase, which is the launch. Now that your unit is live, you have moved from the architecture phase to the operations phase. This is the part that nobody really talks about because everyone is too busy selling the overnight success dream. Let's take a look at the facts. Your first 30 days will likely not be your best month. You are essentially teaching the algorithm who you are. You have 0 reviews, 0 guest history, and the platform is still figuring out where to place you in the search results. I still remember my first booking. It was a mix of excitement and immediate pressure. You realize very quickly that a business on paper is very different from a business in reality. You hit a learning curve with guest communication, or a cleaner might miss a detail that you didn't document well enough in your SOPs yet. This is just normal. After my first 30 days, I saw $5,000 in revenue. It was a massive proof of concept, but it came with the realization that I had to be a professional operator, not a hobbyist. You have to stay focused on the protocol during this ramp up. Most people quit in the first 60 days because they expect the money to be passive immediately. It's not. It's a system that requires a high level audit in the beginning to ensure that the gears are turning correctly. Set realistic expectations. You are building a bridge and you have to let the concrete dry. Stay positive, keep your showroom quality standards high, and respond to every guest with institutional speed. Once those first 5-star reviews hit, the momentum shifts and the algorithm starts working for you instead of against you. That's it. That's the whole playbook for getting your first unit. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it's easy because it's absolutely not. But I will tell you it's simple. Pick your market based on data, find a landlord by offering a solution, set up the unit to a professional standard, and go live with an automated pricing protocol. The hardest part for most people isn't the math or the furnishing, it's just starting. They get stuck in what we call analysis paralysis because they are afraid of the risk. But the real risk is staying exactly where you are for the next 10 years. While arbitrage is a powerful vehicle, different markets and goals require different strategies. Some people prefer the long-term stability of ownership, while others want the high-velocity cash flow of master leasing. The key is to pick the model that aligns with your specific exit protocol. If you want the full A to Z masterclass where I dive deep into the scripts and software that I use to manage 19 units, the link is in the description. Drop a comment and tell me what city you're looking at for your first unit. I want to see where you're putting your flag. And make sure you subscribe because we're just getting started on this build. I'll see you in the next one.